Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Super Connected Conversations. Most of these conversations have been about our connection to life. And because of a chance meeting I had just over a year ago with somebody, I thought it might be interesting to talk to them about our connection to death. Claire Callender is an undertaker, and an undertaker who uses ritual and a much more realistic approach to death than the usual sort of funeral that you might be used to. She is the founder of the Green Funeral Company, and I met her at an event called Toxteth Day of the Dead. We were walking through the streets of Toxteth, surrounded by poets, artists, magicians, theatre makers, pop stars. And what struck me was that all these people had all come together to make a very beautiful but energy charged ritual to honor life and death as one. And this is a part of our culture that's I think has changed a lot, and Claire is someone that knows a lot about it, and that's why I wanted to talk to her. So I hope you enjoy this super connected conversation.
The feelings coming through your fingertips. Don't slide for more. Don't slide for more.
Hello, Claire.
Hi, Tim.
After a few false starts and technical hitches, we're here again.
We are.
Thanks for coming to talk to me. How are you doing?
Well, it's a weird day. As I said, my mum died a year ago today, so it's a very poignant day. And after this, I'm going to go up. She's buried in the burial ground that I set up the road, and I'm going to take some flowers up and sit on her grave and watch the sun go down.
Oh, how beautiful!
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
And that's sort of been the year that most of us have had in terms of the pandemic and everything. That's made this last year even more poignant for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been difficult, especially as an undertaker, not able to do a funeral for my mum. That was quite hard.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of what I really wanted to talk to you about as well. Was just I'm talking to people about connection, and how we connect to each other in life, and I just thought it would be a really fascinating angle to talk about the connection between life and death, which is the one that you've been exploring for how many decades is it?
20 years.
It's 22 decades now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you know, and our connection as well being just we've sung a John Lennon song, a couple of John Lennon songs together.
I know, and I don't even like the Beatles. I was a punk.
Right, you're right. I know. Well, you still are, really, aren't you? And we've walked through the streets of Toxteth and Liverpool together, and we've been to a burial of a certain kind together, and that's a very serious way to connect to someone who you don't know. You know, we haven't met before that event, but maybe talking about Toxteth Day of the Dead might be a good way in for. I'm always trying to think of listeners that have no idea about the sort of work that you do, and indeed the kind of event that was, and what it signifies and what it means to all the people. For me, I came in as an outsider, not knowing what to expect with Toxteth Day of the Dead, and left feeling like I wish I'd known about the one before, because I felt very at home in it. Do you want to talk about that as a good example of?
I'd love to. It's very hard to describe the Toxteth Day of the Dead to people who haven't been, isn't it? It's because what I love about it is it's such a joyful, irreverent, sacred thing. It's everything that needs to be in a funeral. It's full of joy, but it's also very, very serious and sacred and beautiful and romantic and fun.
Yeah, and also humorous.
Yeah, and humorous, exactly.
Which
Yeah,
see,
lots of humour.
which is the huge takeaway. I know that I remember having a conversation with you as we sort of fell into line, walking with everybody through Toxteth, and I think I asked you at the time about was there a time in our society when death wasn't quite so stigmatized and not coped with as well, and well, you can answer that again now, I suppose. I mean, it's
When it wasn't coped with so well, I think what changed. So what I can
you know
see
that
is,
there was another time in British history when death wasn't quite,
yeah, the
as feared,
Victorians.
and
Yeah,
yes, that
the Vic-
actually it was a really huge part of our lives in a different way.
yes, and the Victorians, they did death and mourning so well. I love the black armbands that you would wear if you were bereaved, and people would wear that for a year. I mean, I think we should resurrect that. It's so nice, because I say to people when I work with families that you have a bereavement card to play. You don't have to go to every social event. You can have an excuse not to do stuff that you don't feel up to, and I think that's what the mourning band did. And the Victorians would have, they made all the mourning jewelry with the woven hair brooches, and they would have big family, extended family photographs with the dead person, with the dead child or the dead baby in the photograph, which seems extraordinary to us now. And then I think what happened was 2 world wars, and just the sheer amount of dead, of people's families dying. There just wasn't possible to mourn them on a emotional or energetic level at all, and we became numbed down to it, I think. And it's definitely opening out now. People often say, "Oh, the British don't like to talk about death; it's all swept under the carpet," and that's really not my experience, because I've been an undertaker. As soon as I just feel like people are wanting permission to talk about it. As soon as they know I'm an undertaker, they want to talk about it loads.
Yeah, I noticed that it was the day before. Was it a wake? It was a kind of wake, right?
The Wake L8, yeah, that was a new
Yeah,
addition that year. I thought that worked really well.
and it was a remarkable combination of either family members or friends who'd come to say their piece about who had died, and some of it was really irreverent, and some of it was angry, and some of it was funny, and the kind of thing which you can imagine maybe Richard Curtis might make a film out of, where it was just very real and honest and raw and hard and difficult, and that's what we are, isn't it, as people? And that's the idea. Is that what a lot of the Green Funeral Company was based around? I mean, the
Yeah,
idea of just trying to be honest about the lives that we lose, and when we talk about them when they're gone, that it's not this sort of strange, reverent, disconnected version of who it was.
it's so weird, that, isn't it? I feel that we owe it to people to see them clearly and to
Mm.
speak about them honestly at the end of their life, and to not be afraid of looking at the shadow. We all have the shadow, and there is this extraordinary possibility that can open up in a funeral ceremony, because people are open and listening in a way that they're not in other areas of their lives. So I feel that we have a duty to say important things to people
Mm.
at that time, because they're listening, and things can change. And extraordinary generational family healing is possible in a funeral ceremony, not particularly in that moment, but you can just sow a seed that then goes on, and amazing things come out of funerals.
Yeah, and with Toxic Day of the Dead, I mean, would you call that a funeral?
I think that, so the Wake L8 last year, which was where the night before the Toxic Day of the Dead, we invited families to come
Mm.
and to bring a piece of music, and they had an opportunity to stand up and talk a little bit about their family member or friend who had died, who was going to be mummified. And there was a brother and a sister there who had been shut out of their dad's funeral because he had gone on to marry another woman and had another family, and that family kind of took ownership of his death and his funeral, so they felt very sidelined for it. So for them it was their reclaiming, it was their
It was their
ritual.
funeral. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was for
which
them.
which
Yeah.
made me so happy that they had that opportunity. And
Mm.
when people speak to me at parties and they say that they wish they'd had more time when they were planning their mum's funeral, or that it didn't work for them, I always say, go and do it again. Go to the grave, just rerun it and do it how you want to do. Get all the friends and family around and do it again. Or take the ashes, or go to where the ashes are scattered and do your own ceremony.
Yeah, this is also highlighting another part of our culture that's been lost for a long time, and again, I think having a resurgence, and it's ritual.
Yes. And now we need public mourning death rituals more than ever. My hope for the next Toxteth Day of the Dead, that it is a world COVID mourning public death ritual. I'd like to have like a whole layer of bricks in the pyramid that are just COVID bricks that are maybe a different color, just to mark that.
Because it's almost like whether it's because of death or other activities in life, ritual is the connecting action with any community, isn't it? And that's what I noticed about what you did with Jimmy and Bill, and that whole amazing, like, I don't know what to call it. That just, it's a community, isn't it? That was taking part and making that happen. It was really beautiful. It felt like theatre at its times, and it felt like a church service at other times, and then it also sort of felt like, like a pagan rite at midnight under the moon. I mean, it was such an amazing event, and it really attracted me to the shadow side and death as something not to fear, but actually to start to see as just the flip side of life. There's a door, and they're both on different sides of the door, and it felt that event that you and Rue was sort of kind of curating so amazingly. You were just sort of swinging the door open and closing it again.
Yeah, let's just have a little peek behind there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the pyramid is such a brilliant idea. I love it so much. It's the most exciting thing that's happened in the funeral profession since the Victorians, I believe. I mean, natural burials was a great innovation, and when we started 20 years ago, there were maybe 10 natural burial grounds. There's now probably 300-400, and that was a very exciting thing. But now the pyramid is something else.
Yeah, and a very beautiful idea that in celebrating death and dying, it's there's a financial reward for the living, hopefully. I mean, that's the idea behind it all, isn't it?
Yeah, to get more comfortable with it, to just be kind of have it as a comfortable presence alongside your life, which is pretty much all you can hope for when you are bereaved, because it's so painful in the early stages. But I think the best you can hope for later on, and it does happen, is that the fact of someone's dying just sits in your life in a comfortable place instead of in a terrible, painful place.
I think what you've done with the Green Funeral Company is also quite intuitive, because I've known people and read about people who've often just said, I don't want to have a funeral for mum or dad like that kind of normal funeral. Let's do something different, and let's do something where and that's exactly the sort of service that you've provided, isn't it?
Yeah, it's to bring everything, to bring it's not just grief and sadness. There is romance and humor and fun and anger. That's the thing that's missing most, is anger. I mean, it's not missing, it's there energetically, but it's not very often brought at a funeral.
And that's closure can happen if anger can be expressed, but if it's withheld and not expressed, it festers and can do
and becomes toxic.
things.
What I have often done is invited people to come and spend time with the person that's died in our chapel of rest. We've never thought of a better name for that. And if they're angry, just to say all the things that they need to say to that person, scream and shout and say it. We go, come in the evening, we'll light some candles, just have it. Just do what you've got to do before we lay them down. And then on the day, things are a little clearer for them, because obviously people don't want to do that publicly. I completely understand that. But that can be really helpful.
Yeah. It's a whole other kind of family constellations, isn't it?
I didn't even realize until we were doing the funeral for a man who had been a heroin addict for years and years and years, and he did eventually die of an overdose, and his two brothers were there, and one of his brothers at the funeral just let rip at him. He'd had years of frustration of trying to help him, and he just said it all, and it was astonishing. And I was like, okay, that's been missing up until now. We need to try and bring that in.
Yes, and that's a really good example of death not being an end. It's an opening for some people, isn't it? Like that brother that you talked about.
Yeah, I mean, death is not the end of the relationship, is it? I mean, you're still in relationship, and you're still having conversations. It still goes on.
Yeah, and completely. I still feel enormous connection with the people that that matter to me that have died during my life, and there's still a connection. It's just a different type of connection.
Yeah.
What do you think it is that that makes life these days, and certainly recently, for the most part, much more about life? Like life is, I mean, to be honest, the last album that I did, the title was sort of inspired by the conversation we had on that march to Toxteth. I can't remember what it was exactly that you said, but I called the album "When Staying Alive's the Latest Craze," because of course when nobody got that, but
that's bloody brilliant.
It was meant very ironically, because I have felt that in the last year, of course, pain is one thing, and suffering is treated must be treated with tenderness. When people are losing the people that they love, but there's a lot of expression from many individuals who haven't lost anybody, who are only talking about the terrifying prospect of dying, and in such a way that I sort of felt that this is, I've never lived during any kind of plague pandemic or anything before, but it struck me that there was such emphasis on life, in a way that if perhaps we'd all been attending funerals like the kind that you preside over for many years, then it wouldn't have been so traumatic, the
thought of it.
Yeah, the thought of not having a life. I get it, but I think I used to be afraid of dying. I'm not so much anymore, but as a culture in this country anyway, I just in the last year just thought, wow, we've got a lot of learning collectively to do about death, and that sure, something comes along and threatens us, like what has happened with the pandemic is enormous, but what we carry inside ourselves to navigate that, which seemed like we've learnt very little to be able to cope with it emotionally, and of course, and mentally, the mental health outcome of this. So I'm just wondering, what is it that we've done in recent history to end up as a society that just are only terrified of death? It's going to happen. It's the one certainty about life, isn't it?
It is. It's like the only thing you can say about a baby with any certainty.
So ill-equipped to cope with it. and I do understand the pain of losing people. That is, but actually, our own lives. I think there's something missing, isn't there, in just being kind of more accepting of the idea that there are many people about to die.
Yeah. You touched on something there that rings true for me. I don't think I fear my own death. I mean, who knows when we get there? But right now, I don't. But I fear the death of the people that I love loads. That's where my fear and death collide massively.
Yes, I think a part of me does, and then another part of me doesn't. I had a strange experience in Thailand because I lived in a monastery in a sort of Buddhist Sangha community for quite a while, and then the abbot of that monastery had died, and their abbots they keep them in formaldehyde, and you can go and see them whenever you like. And so I was, I don't know, late 20s, and they asked me to go back and sing to him as a
Yeah.
dead person that I had an amazing connection with in life. And I think it did me the world of good, to be honest, because I just remember coming back after being there for an hour and singing songs, and one of my friends had said, "Where have you been?" I said, "I've just been singing to Long Paw, you know."
Amazing.
And since then, I never felt that worry anymore. I just sort of think you can be with someone when they're physically not really there anyway, can't you?
You really can. And we encourage children to come and spend time with their nan who's died. And when parents and families are brave enough to let that happen, I just think you have given such a gift to that child. That, you know, it's and you know, children, death, they don't have all the cultural baggage around death. So like somebody dying is just like another new experience where they have loads of new experiences every week, every day. And so it's like, oh yeah, that's Nan, she's dead. And they just take it on. And so they just have that foundation for dealing with death like you did in your 20s. That's an amazing experience.
Yeah, I feel very lucky to have had it.
Yeah.
You know.
Did you, so as were you a monk?
I wasn't a monk, no, but I did do a lot of the precepts that the monks do.
So do you spend a lot of time with death as a practice then? In
the monastery, yeah. I've not been back there for several years. I've been staying in touch like this, you know, with my friends who are monks there. And I went to a monk's funeral in the first, I don't know, month that I lived there. And that was an extraordinary 3-day event where they actually, they sing and wail. They do this kind of wild wailing, passionate, which is really unusual for monks because they're not meant to sing and do anything particularly, you know, in this particular sect of monks. And then the cremated ashes are then compounded into these rocks, which are turned into globes. So around that monastery, it's called Tam Krabok Monastery in Thailand. And if you walk around the monastery, you'll occasionally see these stone globes kind of just plonked.
Oh, wow.
And
they're monks.
And sometimes they've made pyramids out of them, actually.
And, seriously, that is good to know.
Yeah, they've got like, you know, like 3 globes at the bottom and 1 on the top and that sort of thing. And I remember sitting on one once without having any clue. I just thought it was, they make sculpture there, and they've got a smelt, you know, they do all this amazing artwork. And I was just sitting on this globe, and the monk looked at me and went, "Cannot." and that's how I found out. And I suddenly realized that walking around this monastery, which is kind of like an eco-sustainable community, amazing, beautiful place, that they're everywhere, and you are living among the dead.
I love that.
Yeah.
So it's a constant there. It's like a constant companion. I like that.
Yeah, and they say that's Monk Peter and that's Monk
George.
them, you know, because they'll remember which one
So they're
yeah.
ever present. I think wailing is missing from our funerals too. I do. I think I've had we've done more than our fair share of funerals for young people, and a couple of times when a young person has died and the mother has just wailed and shouted and screamed and sunk to her knees, and I'm like, yeah, that's how I would be, but that's unusual. It's weird when you talk about the 3 days of wailing and lamenting. That just seems like right and appropriate, doesn't it? And it's been like repressed down to this 20 minutes down the creme here a lot of the time, which is just so awful.
Yeah, there's something quite British about it.
Yeah, there really is.
I mean,
There
not
really
everything
is.
British is bad, but I think that's been
The creme is awful, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
How to sustain trauma.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's a weird thing, but in terms of, you know, the strange and new, we've fast tracked into a different world basically in the last year, haven't we? The things are completely different. How do you think that's going to affect families and moving forward now? I did hear a story about a guy that had to take the I can't remember, the police to court or something like that because they wouldn't let them see their own father and all this sort of stuff. They just said he died of COVID and no, you can't see the body and all this. That's been some really awful.
Yeah.
Of
Was
not
that
being
early on?
exposure. I think it was. Well, it was last year, definitely. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
in the summer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. Some undertakers are a bit odd. They won't let families see someone if they've died of HIV or hepatitis C and
Oh,
stuff
really?
like. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I think you can always make a body safe for someone to come and spend time with them. It's so important. If somebody has that inclination and urge to do it, then I think it should be facilitated.
Mm. And like you were saying, the whole concept of loss when you do lose somebody, you've been around that so much, haven't you? For 20 years, I guess.
Mm.
Do you stay in touch? Do you make a connection with those people yourself?
The sad truth is, Tim, it's how I make my friends.
Wow, I didn't know it was sad. I think that's a great truth.
Yeah, we made lots of friends. The thing is, it's the most brilliant job because you go into the heart of a family and everything's really real and you make these really deep connections with people and
Mhm.
it's a lovely thing. I mean, if I do make friends with them, there does come a bit where they realize that I'm not that constantly supportive person. That, you know, it does have to get real in that respect. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's a great way of meeting people. There's just no
yeah.
crap around death. Everything's real.
It makes it sound like your role is it, I mean, is it in the community where you live? You're in Devon, aren't you?
Yeah, in Totnes and Devon. So it's small
Totnes.
town, yeah.
Yeah, is it mainly in that area that you do, or have you've done, you know, worked as a celebrant all over?
No, we're undertakers
Undertakers.
mainly, yeah. So it's in that area, like Devon and Cornwall, really, and
Mm.
occasionally up into Somerset.
So you must be really, close to a lot of people then in that
Yeah,
who you've got to know through the work you do.
yeah. And
That's
it's lovely. It's lovely seeing people down the line and seeing them recovered and maybe with a new partner and moving on. And yeah, it's a lovely thing. And seeing the children, they've grown up when after their mums died or something.
it's such an interesting way to go through your life. Is that making connections with people because of death?
Yeah, it is quite odd. Yeah, I
Yeah.
never expected to be this.
Do you? I mean, clearly beginning Green Funeral Company with Rue and doing all the work you've done, you had a vision for what you thought would be a good thing to do. And do you still have the same vision, or do you have other hopes about how we will embrace death in the future?
I still have the same vision, and I think Rue has the same vision. It's very easy to get right, it seems to us, and we accidentally just ended up on the kind of cutting edge of a new funerals movement, completely accidentally. There are lots of people doing it now, but my hope and vision is for more public rituals, for more, and I think that will come out of this pandemic. That's my hope. More gathering and mourning. We set up a burial ground near us, a natural burial ground, and on All Souls Day every year we gather everybody who's got someone buried there, which is about, I think it's 200, over 200 people are buried there now. And we put a candle on each grave, and we have a massive fire, and we invite the community, and we light up the woods with candles and fairy lights, and we hold a ritual, and we invite people to say the name and say something, a bit like the Wake L8, but because I always struggle with the Mexican Day of the Dead, which people try to embrace over
I don't
here.
know too much about that. I mean, the Toxteth Day of the Dead, I've experienced, and then found out that had come from the title, the word, the word sort of been inspired by the Mexican one.
Well, the Mexican Day of the Dead is a really hot, colourful, dusty Latin kind of wild party, and everybody goes to the graves and cleans the graves, but I feel it's like in November, and we are just not that as a people and a culture. Come November, we're like quite nesty and a bit soggy and misty and sodden. So our ritual is very much more for our culture.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, it's such an extraordinary idea to think of when you say you have a vision of the future where we have much more public rituals. But I think you're probably right, because when pain is the overriding emotion in those kind of rituals, it's lessened, isn't it, when it's shared pain?
Yeah, you see, the pain is there, but if you're lucky, all that's left really is love. And that's what we spend our time in, is the love that's left. And it's a beautiful thing. People think it's a very depressing job, and actually it's the opposite, because we don't know generally. I mean, more and more we do know the people, because we don't know them, we go in and help people, and we just around the love, and it's beautiful.
No, it sounds really beautiful, and
Yeah.
I think so many communities will benefit from that kind of public ritual if it's allowed.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
to be with each other going through pain. Does it feel like sometimes that you and Andrew, of course, that you've kind of taken on the role of a therapist as well? It sounds
I
very therapeutic what you offer.
Yeah. So over the 2 or 3 weeks between someone dying and their funeral, we spend a lot of time with the family and friends, and we sit and drink tea and talk to them for hours, and lots of stuff comes up. And I think that is one of our major roles, is to just offer this space in our premises for people just to come and just be however they are.
And it's just
Yeah.
a difficult time for people when a loved one dies. It's just one of the most difficult experiences that anyone can go through, isn't it?
It really is, and it's Rue once said, and I think he's right. He said it's like you're tripping. You're just in a slightly different dimension. You know, everyone else in their life is going on over there, but you are just slightly separate, and you're over here, and it's really confusing. And it's really great to just have someone who's tripped before to be with you, and that's kind of how we see ourselves a little.
Yeah, right. You want to be just someone literally holding your hand for those moments that become a bit too frightening on the trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've recently been accepted onto. Have you heard of Psy Care?
No.
That is-
Psy as in psychedelic.
Yeah, they're called
Yeah.
Psycare, and they're this amazing group of volunteers who go to festivals, and that's what they do. They have a safe space and a person for people who are having difficult psychedelic experiences, and
Mm-hmm.
they just hold their, they just see them through to the end of it, with the idea that, okay, you're having what could be like one of the worst nights of your life, but the potential here is for it to be one of the best, and we're going to try and make that happen, rather than just like putting them in the back of a tent with a sick bucket on a bed and checking on them. They try and transform it, and I'm hoping to work with them. They've accepted me onto their training, which I'm
Oh,
so excited
wonderful.
about. Yeah.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah, that sounds like you may have already done a lot of the training for that.
Well, maybe, yeah. But isn't that a great organization though?
Yeah, I think all anything that's rather than sort of telling people off and getting cross with what mess they get themselves into, just being there for them.
Yeah.
It's better,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Much
Yeah.
nicer.
Yeah.
And just lastly, in terms of, this is so good because it's so human. I've had some conversations in this series which are so tech. We haven't even talked about tech because it's just inherently human what we're talking about. But has that changed? The work that you've done in the last 20 years, tech, social media, the focus that people have that's not always on the human side of their life, but actually the virtual side.
Well, I suppose there is your digital legacy and what happens to your Facebook page. And I think where I see it happening is, I think what happens, especially with Facebook, when a school age young person dies, when they die when they're at secondary school, there is can be a collective hysteria that can grow up around that person dying, and it erupts on Facebook, and it can get really out of hand, with people kind of jostling for proximity, for the kind of reflected drama of being close to this person who's possibly killed themselves, often has killed themselves. There was a really troubling episode, or a thing that happened in Bridgend. Do you remember that South Wales town where they had a spate of, I think, something like 12
No.
school kids killed themselves?
Oh God.
And they were bringing in psychologists, and it was catching, and they think in the end it was like there was so much drama, and the people became kind of famous and celebrities after they died. It was a very strange phenomenon.
Wow. So your experience of social media in that way, in this respect of people dying, is kind of some kind of distraction from the beautiful tending that you're doing.
It can be, but I think also I don't use Facebook, but I do know that it can also be really lovely for families to see what people have to say about them very instantly on Facebook and read lots of lovely messages. I think it's really good, really great for families too.
It is both sides, isn't it?
Mm.
And in terms of you connecting with people about that part of your life, I know you're on Twitter, but
Yeah.
there's that. Is social media a fun place to be to talk about death? I guess I'm saying.
I do love Twitter, but I think you create your own Twitter, don't you, by who your connections are with. Yeah. I'm always up for talking about death anywhere. So wherever I am, it generally comes up. So but there is more to life than death, for sure. Is my conclusion.
Is that your epitaph?
Yes. I think so.
Oh, amazing. Claire, thank you so much for just let me probe into the world that you live and work in, because it's just fascinating to me.
Well, I was very, very flattered to be invited on, Tim. Thank you. I've really enjoyed your other podcasts.
Oh, thank you. Well, look, let's stay in touch, and I think you'll certainly be the first person I'll be getting in touch with if anybody close to me decides to move into the other
Yeah.
dimension.
Yeah, it is a really lovely thing, having this, because when your friends, you know, when I can't do the funeral because they're not here, but their parents die, I go, okay, I can help you with this. It's such a nice thing. Yeah. So yeah, I shall be there.
Bless you. Well, look, thank you so much, and hopefully see you again soon. Maybe in Toxteth, maybe near a pyramid.
Yes, I hope so too. Lots of love, Tim.
Lots
Go
of love.
well.
Bye.
Bye bye.